Dear old work platform, it's not you, it's us. Actually, it is you. Endless onboarding? Constant IT bottlenecks? We've had enough. We need a platform that just gets us. And to be honest, we've met someone new. They're called Monday.com, and it was love at first onboarding. Their beautiful dashboards, their customizable workflows got us floating on a digital cloud 9. So no hard feelings, but we're moving on. Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
When you say being okay with it, what does that mean?
Being okay with the yucky feelings, being okay with I just made that decision and that's the way it is going to be and I'm not going to change my mind.
Ooh, okay. What I noticed on your face when you said that like it's whatever part of you is sure, whatever part of you is your intuition and knows your worth, highest self Maggie, she was talking right then. Did you feel that? Or do you ever see her?
I kind of did. When I said it didn't feel as sketchy or as rehearsed. It felt more real.
When you listen back to the recording, I hope that you hear that part of you because she exists. You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 677. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. So I'm bringing you something that I haven't done in a long time, and that is a coaching session, a live coaching session here on the air. So I think about once a year, I open up applications for people to come on and be vulnerable and brave at the same time and get coached by me. And you have to apply to do that. And I try to pick people who are bringing topics that I think would be universal for all of you, if not most of you. And so that's what this is. Maggie is brave today, and she's coming on the show to bring something that I do think that so many of us struggle with. You're going to hear about it in just a minute. And at the very end of the episode, stay tuned because she so generously came back and gave us an update, which is always nice to hear about. The real work happens after we get off of Zoom. I coach you and help you work through something that you're struggling with or that you feel stuck on. And then you go out into the world and take the action steps that we have come up with during the coaching session that you have agreed upon. And so that's when the real bravery comes in, is actually taking the action. And so you'll hear about that on this episode. That being said, I want to remind you that I do have openings for coaching this summer. And I decided to do something that I don't think I've done in a very long time, if ever. And I'm opening up options for a single strategy and soul session with me. If you're not sure that you want to commit to an entire coaching package, which I know can feel a little bit daunting, I do have an option for just a single session. And because sometimes we get stuck on one thing, or we know we need to have a hard conversation with someone and we're just procrastinating because we don't know what to say. We don't know how to approach it. If that's you, this would be perfect for you. So it's at andreaowen.com/single, not because you're a single lady. Maybe you're a single lady, but because it is a single session. andreaowen.com/single. You can just pay for it, book it, and I'll meet you on Zoom. You don't need to fill out an application or anything like that. There will be a short questionnaire, so we have a jumping off point. But andreaowen.com/single. I would love to see you on Zoom and be able to help you through whatever it is you are stuck on. All right, let's get into it. I truly hope that you enjoy today's podcast episode. And I want to just extend my gratitude for listening, for being here. I know how valuable your time is, and I do not take it for granted that you show up every week. So without further ado, here is the coaching conversation with Maggie. Maggie, welcome to Coaching on the Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I'm excited for you to be here too. And so for the listener, can you introduce yourself and tell people where you are calling in from?
My name is Maggie Wright, and I'm calling in from Ione, California.
From Ione, California, which was when you told me that the last time we talked, it was a new place for me. And so it's like kind of Northern California-ish, correct?
Yes. If
Okay.
anybody knows Kirkwood, I'm right by Kirkwood Ski Mountain
Oh,
and
okay.
Sacramento.
Yeah, I've heard of that place. All right. Northern California. So today, you and I have already, for sake of transparency, you and I have already talked before where we've figured out what it is that you want coaching on. So can you tell us sort of the topic that we landed on? Because I know there was a couple of them, like the place where you're struggling.
So I think we kind of landed on self-compassion and just learning how to give myself more self-compassion. We also talked about the fourth step of Al-Anon and resentments, because I hold a lot of resentments.
So you are wanting to work on self-compassion, and we'll unpack that a little bit. And then also when we talked, and just, for kind of like a behind the scenes in terms of how coaching works, normally it wouldn't look like this, but because we're creating a podcast episode about it, I always want to get very, very clear on what it is that your challenge or struggle is. And then also, what do you want at the end of this conversation? Like, what would feel really awesome to you? And so our goal is what for the end of this
Our
session?
goal is learning self-compassion, some tips on how to, provide some self-compassion to myself in the
Yeah.
midst of being a caretaker.
Okay. And totally easy. We're going to get that all squared away in 50 minutes. No problem. And I joke because self-compassion is a lifelong learning lesson, I think, for most of us, like myself included. But we can certainly unpack, and we appreciate so much you being vulnerable and transparent about, your unique perspective and situation of where self-compassion could come in handy, but is also challenging. So that being said, can you give us a little bit of background to like how did you land here? How did you come to the knowledge that maybe self-compassion might be good for you given what circumstances?
I landed here in many different ways. I've done some therapy.
Mm-hmm.
My therapist suggested your book, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit.
Which I'm so honored when a therapist does that. So thank you to your therapist.
So I read that. I'm rereading it again, actually. And I've done some inner child trauma healing and working alongside with my sister because we're both pretty much in the same boat as trying to take care of our mother, who was not a very good caretaker for us when we were children. So it's really difficult to come across with that. I also helped her with her husband's passing, who was not a good person. I was there for that. So in between all of this, everybody's asked me, what do you do for self-compassion? How do you care for yourself after all of this at the end of the day? And I thought, I don't know. Maybe I take a bath once in a while, but other than that, I feel guilty when I try and take too much time out for myself.
You also had mentioned that you have some guilt when you feel like your caretaking is obligatory, when you feel resentful for the people that you have to caretake, you feel resentful for other people who might not be helping as much as you are.
Yes, that's a big part of it, is I'm very resentful towards my mother for not being there, for not providing a good role, for not loving me, for not hugging me, for not saying I love you on a regular basis. And now here we are, the roles are reversed and she's acting like a child and she wants me to be there as her mother. She's even so much as said, Maggie mom to me. And it's so hard because I want to be the ugly stepmom and lock her in a closet and treat her the way she treated me.
Yeah.
And it's difficult when people are like, oh, you need to be there for your mother more. Well, that's not fair because she wasn't there for me. So how do I turn around and do that for her?
Right.
And I'm doing it, but it's difficult. Like I really have to rev up to go spend the day with her or take her to her doctor's appointments or help her with whatever. And when we've had her over for different family events and she's an alcoholic and she gets belligerent and says some horrible things, then I get resentful for my brother and sister. Like, why are you not shipping in more? How come you're not here offering to take her for these holidays? And why am I stuck with every single holiday? And my kids.
It sounds like it takes a lot of energy for you to even deal with it in the first place. And then the aftermath, it takes even more energy for you to recover from it.
Yes.
Okay.
The recovery part is huge.
Okay.
I'm
And your
exhausted.
self-care regimen might need a little help.
Yeah. More than a glass of wine.
Right. Well, you know how I feel about that. Yeah. It's like, I always ask the question, like, what is the problem that you think wine is going to solve? And then that's the thing that needs to be sort of unpacked. Well, let's start with just the topic of resentments. I know that it came up when we had our quick call before. And for me as a coach and a facilitator, leaning into my intuition, I felt like it could possibly be a pretty big source of your pain, of what was like keeping you
Huge
not feeling
source of
great.
my pain.
Yeah. So I did something that I don't know if I've done with anyone that I've coached on the podcast before, is I gave you an assignment for you to do between then, which was last week, and today when we're recording. So I have no idea how this assignment went. So in real time, as I would with an actual client, you're going to tell me how it went. And why don't you explain the assignment that I gave you, as someone who's not as familiar with, you are familiar with 12-step programs. That's not fair for me to say you're not as familiar as I am, but it's been a minute since you've done anything with the 12 steps, correct?
Yes, a long minute.
A minute. Okay, so why don't you and if you want, you can give a little bit of background of why I did that, and also what was the assignment that you did.
Okay. So I think you gave it to me basically because I'm familiar with Al-Anon and AA because my parents have both struggled with alcohol and drugs.
Yes.
So that's a huge part of my childhood and adulthood. So we worked on, you got me a link towards the fourth step, which is searching and fearless moral inventory. Which if you just say it out loud, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't remember.
That's very jargony. So
yes.
So how would you explain that to someone now that you've gone through the exercise recently?
Well, luckily you gave me a really good assignment piece that said, number one, acknowledge your resentments. And it says, have your client say how she feels towards her mother. Examples, I resent my mother for not being present during my childhood. So I was reading this and I'm like, well, yeah, I could write down exactly those words because that's exactly how I feel. So I just read the question and then answered because I didn't want to copy.
Yeah. So you put it into your own words.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I resent her for not being a caring mother, for not saying I love you, for not giving hugs or cuddles or listening to my problems when I was a child, for leaving me, for abandoning me, for asking a 4-year-old, I was a 4-year-old, to take care of my 2-year-old sister.
Yeah.
Or when she had her second child, or asking this 8-year-old to take care of a newborn because he was too much for her to handle. And then explore my fears. Have your client identify fears related to my mom's illness and dependency. And I will tell you, I went over and above with my children. I was way more the nurturer and the protector, and I should have punished them more.
Yeah.
Because
so the pendulum kind of swung very far the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, I was afraid. And then drugs and alcohol, I've always been afraid of being attached to any of that. So I'm always cautious. I don't allow myself to just really throw it out and have a good time. It takes forever for me to, drink more than a couple glasses of something because I'm so afraid I'm going to get drunk and then be an alcoholic.
Okay, gotcha.
And my kids didn't even see me drink when they were little because I didn't want them to ever see that. Examine personal role. So that was the hard part.
I'm going to stop you for a second before we go on to the next part. So the first step was like you taking, and when they say moral inventory, like that's sort of what they mean. Like really, really shine the light and admit all of the resentments that you have. And so it sounds like, and I know this isn't like the first time you've unpacked this because you've had lots of therapy with it, but as we know, it can be helpful to revisit things. Some like the big traumas tend to not just like be one and done. So listing out all of these things, everything from the kind of obvious face value of that she didn't nurture you enough to things like it impacting your sort of being on high alert about your own behavior around alcohol. all of this inventory that you took, how did it feel or what did it make you think when you looked at this list of resentments?
Sadly, it makes me not like her even more.
Okay.
One of the biggest things, and I didn't know that it was for me and my sister, was she didn't stick up or believe us when we said things like, hey, our stepdad's touching us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe do something about this. And she's like, oh, no, no, no. That's huge. That is huge. Writing this list down, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. I thought it was just a few things. And before I know it, I wrote it and then I sat down again and wrote it again last night and
Okay.
had even more. And then I'm looking at different people. It wasn't just, I hold resentments against more than just her. My dad, I feel like my dad should have stepped in, and I idolized my dad, but he really should have stepped in and taken us. But he, again, chose dependency over parenting and being selfish with his time and his money and his freedom of not being a parent, where my sister and I are struggling. And, we lived in a van for years. I went to 12 elementary schools.
Oh my gosh.
There's only 6 years.
Yeah.
How does that happen? And now I looked at the other resentments, and resentment against my sister just because, she gets to choose her sanity over dealing with our mom, and
Mm-hmm.
she's not that far away. Or my brother, who chose to move states away.
Yeah.
When I ask him for some help, he calls her, but then he bails on, really pointing out that it's her problem and not my problem. So it was tough to look at the resentments, then I've, listened to my kids too, and they have some resentments about the way I parented them.
Okay. So it sounds like it's sort of for lack of a better expression, it bled out into other people, into your parenting. It wasn't just black or white, you and mom and her behavior. It branched out.
Yes,
Have you ever
exactly.
done an exercise where you went that in depth?
No,
Okay.
no, this was really my first time. My first time doing Al-Anon, I was a kid. My dad said, "Hey girls, I just want to let you know, I'm gay and I'm an alcoholic. So we're going to go to Al-Anon," which was fun. We did all these fun things. We didn't have to do really the 12 steps other than maybe in a childhood fashion. And then I went to rehab with him again as an adult. And I don't remember doing an exercise at all with all the 12 steps, this in depth at all. It was
Yeah.
just basically touching on him. And I was told that I was an amazing star codependent. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, yay. But that's not really what you want to be.
Right. Yes. No, I know. So, okay. So you did this in-depth exercise that I that I assigned you to. You take this quote unquote fearless moral inventory, which I think is there are a lot of great things about 12-step programs. And there are a lot of things I don't love. Some of that is the language that they use. Like I don't love the term character defect. I don't love fearless moral inventory. Like who's fearless? Especially if you're doing
Yeah,
a moral inventory. Like I'm scared.
exactly. It's very scary.
So I just wanted to say that. And I also want to commend you for really digging in because that's not easy. And that you having the courage and the vulnerability to sit down and really do that and go 7 layers deep instead of just staying on the surface. Well, it's like, my mom did this, my mom did that. The end. You went further. And that takes a lot of courage. And that requires some self-compassion. So I just want to acknowledge that, as difficult as it was, it does take at least a little bit of self-compassion for you to know that you're gonna do this exercise and you're gonna finish it and you're gonna be okay. So you make the list.
I made the
And then
list.
what was the next step that you did?
The next step is exploring those fears. One of my biggest fears was turning into her, being an alcoholic, not being a caretaker, jumping from man to man, not being a good mom. Now, a big one is I'm afraid that I'm going to miss her when she's gone because I've seen people, all of a sudden forget all the bad.
Yeah,
And when the person's gone, they
kind of
realize, oh, I should have done
romanticize.
more.
Yeah.
But I feel like I do that every day when I come home anyway from visiting her. So that was a big part. When I look at her, I'll never be able to have compassion for her. That's a big fear of mine. she's 45 minutes away. So I prep myself all the way up there. Today's the day. Today's the day. We're going to be good and it's going to work out. And I get there and it's not.
And it's just too hard.
Yeah.
If you're a woman over 40 dealing with perimenopause, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. Did you know there are so many perimenopause symptoms? Hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness and libido change, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, joint pain, bone loss, and fracture risk. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're experiencing and know how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. Visits and prescriptions are covered by major insurance providers, no membership fees or hidden costs. If you're uninsured or Medicare is out of network under your plan, they also offer affordable cash payment for services. I know for me, as I'm about to turn 50 in 2025, finding a doctor that specializes in perimenopause and menopause is incredibly important. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Carla only.
Dear old work platform, it's not you, it's us. Actually, it is you. Endless onboarding? Constant IT bottlenecks? We've had enough. We need a platform that just gets us. And to be honest, we've met someone new. They're called Monday.com, and it was love at first onboarding. Their beautiful dashboards, their customizable workflows got us floating on a digital cloud 9. So no hard feelings, but we're moving on. Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
Let me just tell you, Cozy Earth makes the most comfortable pajamas I've ever worn in my life. I am not exaggerating when I tell you this. The fabric is insanely soft. It feels like someone spun it from clouds and whispered affirmations into it. And don't get me started on the sheets. They're like butter. I have a white set. They're cool, luxurious, and yes, I actually look forward to crawling into bed like it's a spa appointment. Now that the weather's warming up, I've noticed how well they regulate temperature. I run fairly hot at night, like I wake up sweaty, the back of my neck, but these sheets, game changer. Pajamas, game changer. I sleep cooler and wake up actually rested. And when I'm wearing their pajamas in the morning, especially on the weekends, I stay in them for half the day. I feel spoiled, treat myself level spoiled. Honestly, Cozy Earth has made my bedtime and slow mornings feel like a full-on ritual. And if you haven't tried them yet, you are absolutely missing out. But here's the good news. They have a 100-night trial and 10-year warranty. So if you're not obsessed, you can send it back, but trust me, you won't want to. Luxury shouldn't be out of reach. Use code NOISE for 40% off best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more. Trust me, you won't regret it. Sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth. If we had more time, I would have you go through every single one of those with me. But for sake of time, I don't want y'all thinking that I'm just jumping over this because I want to. For sake of time, I want to, have enough time for us to move into some exercises and solution. Am I correct in understanding that one of the steps in this whole process is looking at sort of what it took from you?
Yeah. What did this take from me? So trust, comfort, a huge, huge, huge part that hit me last night was learning to speak up for myself, because the few times I tried to, like, hey, don't leave us alone, or hey, that man touched me, or hey, we're hungry. When I finally spoke up, she brushed over it.
Yeah.
And so then now I'm looking back and I'm thinking I could have gone so much further in my career if I'd been able to speak up for myself. I wouldn't have been in 2 abusive relationships if I had learned how to speak up for myself. I'm in my 50s and I'm learning to speak up for myself now, and it hurts. It's hard. My stomach hurts so bad when I'm like, today's the day we're going to say, and I don't say it with authority like I should. So that, I feel like that was a huge part. And being a sexual being, being okay with who I am and asking for what my needs are.
Right.
Because I didn't get to see that in a good light.
It was taken from you.
Definitely, I have a fear of abandonment. If I don't do the right things or say the right things, I'm going to be abandoned. I don't feel like I'm good enough or lovable.
Yeah.
So those are I think the biggest things that
The main
all
ones.
took from me.
Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on the last part. And I prefaced this when we talked previously that this is like I don't want to say it's my least favorite part of the exercise, but it can get tricky. And that's the last part, which is what?
Well, the last part was develop healthy boundaries.
Before that.
Practice self-compassion. And then before that, consider character assets and deficits.
Right. For you. Which I'm pretty sure I prefaced this in the email or at least on our call. And for anyone listening who does a step 4, especially when whatever resentment you have happened to you when you were a child. So the purpose of this step is to look at your part. Like where do you need to take any responsibility? So if you were an adult, this would be a different conversation. But I told you, like as a child, no, there's like 0 part. When you're a child, no. However, as an adult, this is where we hear people say, it wasn't your fault, but now it's your responsibility in terms of healing it and moving forward. That being said, as an adult now, like today, Maggie, do you think that there is anything that you thought of when we think about like, okay, what is your part now in terms of all of this and how you're receiving it all?
My lack of boundaries. I need to learn how to set some boundaries so that people don't continue to treat me the way I've allowed everyone to treat me. And like you said, it wasn't my responsibility as a child, but I let that carry into my entire life and have not set boundaries. And I used to joke that I have, tell me your problems, I'm a doormat stuck on my forehead and everybody else could read it. And I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. But it's because I don't set boundaries.
Yeah.
And they're scary because I've been trying to recently set some boundaries, and how people receive that is difficult because, they're like, oh, you just don't care. Oh, you just don't have time for us anymore. Oh, you just don't. And that's tough. Really what I'm saying is, no, I'm allowed to have some of my time to say, no, you can't treat me like that.
Yeah. So lack of boundaries is one. Anything else you notice that might be helpful?
Failure to speak up and speak my mind.
Okay. Speaking up.
That's huge. I just don't know how. I put that role on my sister when we were little. We talk about it now because she feels like our dad, said, you're annoying. That's what she grew up with, was you're annoying. Mm-hmm. And it was because I would say, go ask for this, go ask for that. Because she didn't have that stop button. So she would keep doing it.
Okay. So you almost used her like a kind of like a human shield-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. All that being said, was there anything else that jumped out at you in terms of like what you need to take responsibility for?
Those are the biggest.
Okay.
Because if you look at those 2 things, the waterfall that came from those is really why I'm where I'm at.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's really why I can't find time to give myself self-compassion. It's why I can't find time for me, is because I just don't know how to set those lines.
I want to pause for a second and talk for a minute to you and to the people listening to this. This isn't a traditional like coaching topic that I would normally pick to bring here. It does sort of like dance on the line of therapy. However, I wanted to give you and this topic a voice because it's incredibly common. And it's also incredibly common for when we get to middle age and we start to feel that kind of like dampening of the soul, tap on the shoulder. Why am I so angry at everybody all the time? And a lot of times it points directly to this. I wanted to normalize it and talk about it. And we're going to talk about some strategies. And also, I just wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing something so deeply vulnerable. And I know it takes a lot of courage to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna talk for a minute about everything that you said and kind of like paint a picture as a universal, relatable thing that I think a lot of people can relate to. You mentioned some very specific things. You mentioned issues with trust, that you were angry that you weren't able to trust either of your parents, specifically we're talking about your mom, that nobody spoke up for you, that this has impacted talking about your sexual desires and speaking up around that. And then you also mentioned the word abandonment. And even before you said that, I had jotted down the word self-abandonment and put an arrow to those behaviors. Because when we're talking about codependence, we're talking about self-abandoning. Of course, we'd grow up to do that. And what I mean by self-abandonment, how that manifests is lack of boundaries, not speaking up, not feeling like our needs matter. And then oftentimes we end up picking partners and sometimes friends who don't meet our needs. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like we are attracted to people that end up either not making any room for our needs or making us wrong for asking for them. And then we also live in a culture where as women, we're taught it's not a good thing to be quote unquote needy.
Yes.
So we don't ask, which makes us not be able to trust people. It's just this cycle that keeps circling over and over and over again. And when all we had modeled for us were people that didn't show up the way we needed them to in a healthy, trusting, loving, nurturing manner, that's what we learned to do to ourselves. So for ourselves. And I say all that not to like paint a grim picture, but to say, of course you did. You followed the rules, Maggie.
Thanks.
Yeah, A+. You did what was set up for you. And again, I want to commend anybody who's taking the courage to look at this, because it's not like I call this like the ripping off the covers, the turning on the light in the messy kitchen where you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Here I am. Now what?
That's a big part. Now what?
Now what? Yeah. I want to say one more thing before I start asking you questions. You don't need to work on forgiving your mom or anybody else in order to work on this for you.
Thank you. Because I'm not there.
Mm-mm. And I've probably said this, like it's important to work on forgiving other people, but at the end of the day, you're more important. You're more important. Like a huge step of stopping the self-abandonment pattern is to just make a decision to focus on yourself. When we're talking about, we could talk about self-compassion, but I want to ask you some sort of bigger questions. And first, like, what is self-trust? What would self-trust look like for you?
Trust myself to make a decision.
Okay.
And that it's my decision, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really big thing. I don't make decisions well about anything.
What happens? Do you second guess yourself? Do you just vacillate?
Always.
Okay.
I second guess myself about a pair of shoes. Do I really like that purse? Do I need that outfit? Should I make that jump to that position? Should I apply for that job? I second guess every decision I make.
Okay. Fears, worries, anxiety, etc.
Yep.
Okay. So what else? Lack of self-trust impacts your decision-making abilities. What else? What do you think someone who has a decent amount of self-trust does differently than you?
I think that they hold their head higher. I think they can walk into a room and feel comfortable walking into the room without thinking everybody's staring at them. Mm-hmm. I think they parent different. They parent with more just trust in their ability that they're a good parent.
Yeah. And
not second guess their parenting styles.
Yeah.
I feel like they just have more oomph.
Mm-hmm.
They're just more sure of themselves.
Even if I had like a magic wand or you had a magic wand and we could wave it, do you think that getting to that place is possible for you?
I hope so.
Okay.
I don't think it's a magic wand.
Good, because it's not. I wish. I would make a lot of money if I had that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm glad to hear you say that you hope so. That's all you need.
Yeah, that's all I want. I want tools to learn, to try and break these bad habits.
Well, before I suggest any, what do you think might be, looking at all of this, at the exercise you did, the kind of high level things that are the sticking points for you, what we just talked about at self-trust, looking at all of that, what do you think might be a step in the direction to work on practicing trusting yourself?
Making a decision and not second guessing it.
Okay.
Going with the flow of that.
What if you could still second guess it and just make the decision anyway?
Yeah, that'd be great. Just make the decision and be okay with it and not feel yucky in my stomach.
You can still feel yucky in your stomach. This is like baby step. We're baby stepping over here.
Okay. Baby steps.
You point to something. I'm glad you're super honest by saying that, because I think that sometimes we make up how, when we do these exercises that are forcing us out of our comfort zone, like we think that it needs to be sort of all or nothing. Either I second guess myself and stay stuck in indecision and don't trust myself, or I make a decision, I don't second guess myself, and I don't have a yucky feeling in my stomach. Like, do you see how like polar opposite those are?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like what would be in the middle? I kind of already gave it away, but what would be in the middle? I want to hear you say it.
Making the decision and just making the decision.
And feeling the discomfort that's going to come with that.
And feel the discomfort and be okay with the discomfort.
Yes. The feeling of, oh my God, what have I done?
Yes.
Let's be honest, life is a lot right now. Stress is high, anxiety is creeping in, and it's easy to feel like you're barely holding it together. If that's where you're at, or even if you simply love feeling a little more grounded, Headspace might be exactly what you need. It's the app that's helped me feel more grounded, less overwhelmed, and so much calmer. Whether it's guided meditations, breathing exercises, or a quick calming tool, it's full of practices that actually work. And no matter where you are on your mindfulness journey, total newbie or someone who's been meditating for years or somewhere in between like I am, there's always something that meets you right where you are. Honestly, every time I open the app, it feels like it was made just for me. When I'm short on time, those go-to sessions are perfect. I absolutely love their breathing exercises. And with over 1,000 hours of content, I can always find something that fits my day and my mood. So if you're ready to actually mean it when you say, I'm good, Headspace can help. Feel good and mean it when you say it. For a limited time, get Headspace free for 60 days. Go to headspace.com/make some noise. That's HEADSPACE.com/make some noise to unlock all of Headspace free for 60 days. Headspace.com/make some noise.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
If I can paint like a quick personal example, and this is a big one, a huge moment of my own work in self-trust was leaving my marriage in the beginning of 2023, feeling intuitively that it was the best decision and that it was long overdue. Also feeling intuitively and practically that we had done everything that we could to try to save it. And I felt good in that. But still, the being in the precipice of like making the decision, yes or no, stay or go, making the jump, having the conversation. And also at the other end of that, I assure you, I had moments where I said to myself, what the fuck have I done?
Mm-hmm.
Did I just completely implode my family and make the biggest mistake of my life? Should I take it back? Should I just rewind everything and say, never mind, I made a mistake? I absolutely thought that. And I think that that is the case for a lot of people who make big decisions, who are used to not trusting themselves. So I say that because if you are used to second guessing yourself, it is probably going to be incredibly uncomfortable when you jump.
That's what you just said is basically my life in a nutshell for every decision I've ever made, my divorce and quitting my job. And
you know what? And if you do kind of backtrack, like if I had second guessed myself and then said, never mind, I actually don't want to leave this marriage. I want to try to work it out. I would have ended up here regardless. It might have just taken me long and a little more stumbles little more broken hearts along the way. But I say that as an example of there's a messy middle. There's black or white. There's, total indecision, somebody who makes confident decisions and never second guesses herself. And then there's also a messy middle and what that looks like for what we're talking about is making the decision, taking the action, and also feeling the massive, uncomfortable feelings that are going to come with that.
I'll do it.
It is so much like working out. You got to put in the reps and sets. You got to have just like inventory, the experiences of it. And it gets a little bit easier every time.
That's, I think the hardest part is just getting into the habits of doing these things and being okay with them. Bad habits are easy to fall into.
When you say being okay with it, what does that mean?
Being okay with the yucky feelings, being okay with I just made that decision and that's the way it is going to be. And I'm not going to change my mind.
Ooh, okay. You know what's interesting to me? This is why I love, so in the beginning of my coaching practice, we didn't meet on video. We met over the phone. And when we started to transition on video, I was ecstatic because I could see my clients when they said the answers to their questions or just telling me their insights and things like that. What I noticed on your face when you said that like it's whatever part of you is sure, whatever part of you is your intuition and like knows, it might be a small part of you, but like knows your worth. I would call that like highest self Maggie. She was talking right then.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you were so matter of it's the certainty and the matter of factness that I love when I see in women because I'm like that right there. It's inside of you.
Awesome.
Did you feel that, or do you ever see her?
I kind of did when I said it. It didn't feel as sketchy.
Okay,
or as rehearsed. It felt more real.
Yeah. When you listen back to the recording, I hope that you hear that part of you because she exists.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
So making a decision, is there any decision that, you don't have to tell us, but like, is there something that you're thinking about or that you've been vacillating on where you can make that decision? Or is it something that needs to come your way in the future?
It's everything right now, Andrea.
Okay.
It's just cleaning out my house. It's just getting rid of the junk and the clutter. I'm trying to start a new business, doing permanent jewelry.
Ooh,
and that scary plunge of just saying, okay, click, here's my Facebook page.
Yeah.
It teetered so bad on it.
I want to offer one thing too, because I don't want to completely step over the topic of self-compassion and what that might actually look like while you're practicing this. When you are feeling those moments, like when your hand is hovering over the mouse of like pushing publish on your website or your Facebook page for your jewelry business, or you are thinking about throwing something out as you clean out a closet and you're like, oh, should I keep this? Should I not keep it? I want you to notice where the opportunity for self-compassion can come into play.
Okay.
What do you think that might look like for you in those moments in terms of how you speak to yourself?
Well, on the business, I think self-compassion would be, it's okay if it doesn't work. That it's not me.
Yeah.
It's just not the right time. Whereas, most of the time that's me going, I'm a failure. I didn't do hard enough. I didn't do it well enough. That's my normal fallback, that it's all me. Tossing something, right now I'm going through pictures of my kids. Okay, should I have thrown that away? Should I keep that? Do I want to be my mom? Do I want to hoard everything? Do I want to, or just toss it and say, it's okay.
I love that. And I'm going to challenge you to maybe take a beat in those moments to think about the part of you. If you want, side note, if you want additional reading, this is for anyone listening who can relate to how Maggie's feeling and what you're going through. Have you read No Bad Parts about internal family systems?
No.
Even if you listen to the audiobook, I've listened to the audiobook. It's what it refers to are the parts of you that you have sort of pushed down during any kind of childhood trauma, whether it's big T or little t traumas. And so what it would look like in this regard is that you are speaking to the part of yourself that is scared to, in your jewelry business. There's a part of you, and maybe it's a little girl part of you, definitely a younger version of you, who is afraid of the vulnerability of putting yourself out there to sell your art. The fear of rejection, who does not want people to say no. what I encourage you to avoid is kind of like poo-pooing that part. And some people, especially like smart, high achieving women, can be like, just muscle through it. Especially Gen Xers, like this is what we grew up on. Like, it's like, you're fine. Just dust yourself off. You'll be fine, Maggie. And it's like, well, if you think about the little girl that did not get somebody who was speaking up for her, who did not get anybody to protect her. So it's like you essentially, self-compassion in that moment would look like you essentially nurturing and giving that little girl a hug who is scared and saying, I see that you're scared. And that's valid. And I'm a 50-something-year-old woman now, and I'm going to be okay if it doesn't work out. But I understand how scary this must be for you.
I like that. Hug my inner child.
Yeah, and it can bring up, it might be really easy for you to walk through that, or it might be, stir up a lot of emotion.
It'll stir emotion.
I would think it would for me. Like,
yeah.
But it doesn't mean if anyone's listening to this, doesn't mean you're wrong if it doesn't. It just like that is even just, I know how much we love to sort of plow through things and plow over them. Even just taking a beat to acknowledge the little girl inside of you who's scared.
I like that.
Because that's essentially the place where you have been in indecision. She's been essentially driving the bus.
Okay.
As we start closing up, we've covered a lot of ground. Is there, because I do have, a couple more suggestions, but is there anything that you can think of that would be helpful for you to work on?
Well, you gave me some great ideas. If you could just give me a few more ideas of what self-compassion might look like.
I encourage you also to maybe do it is an act of self-compassion, even to do some reflecting and hopefully journaling on what self-abandonment has looked like for you. What does it mean for you to regularly, over the span of your life, walk away from yourself?
That's going to be deep.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you can start that journaling from like, what have been the benefits? Because there have been for a certain amount of time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's been the benefits of self-protection.
Yeah, probably of doing what you know how to do.
Oh, that's, yeah, for sure. Falling back into the norm.
Yeah, the patterns, the family rules.
Of what's easiest.
I think we don't sort of talk about or look at when we think about our families of origin and the unspoken rules that were usually unspoken. Sometimes they were actually spoken, but it's sort of like the energy, if you will, of this is how we do things around here. If somebody would have posted up, remember those signs that were at the pools, like the pool rules, like don't go swimming if you have diarrhea, like type of thing. Like just like, okay, like what would have been the rules in your house? It's like we don't talk about hard things. We don't do this, and this.
We don't hug. We don't say I love you. We don't talk about hard things. We don't talk about pain and suffering.
Kids are not allowed
smile
to
through it.
Mm-hmm.
We never walk out of our trailer with wrinkled clothing.
Mm-hmm.
We have a rug and there's a big bump because we sneak everything underneath the rug.
Right.
Walk around it.
It keeps getting bigger. We have plenty of brooms.
Yes.
For that act. Never anything, and never any tools for actually looking at it, but we got plenty of brooms. An act of self-compassion is to look at the benefits. Because I think sometimes when we reflect or journal on things like that, on what self-abandonment looks like, we can look at these entries and then start to beat ourselves up. It's like, what have I been doing to myself my whole life? I call that the ultimate ass kicker when you're beating yourself up for beating yourself up. Like it can be unhelpful at the end of the day. So I think it might be a good idea for you to look at, like, where were you kind of quote unquote doing what you were told?
Yeah.
The self-protecting.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Doing what I was told.
Mm-hmm. And then I think if there's any more, I think these are going to be big. Like it's like we're getting out the big snow shovel for these for you. So I just want to acknowledge that, like how big these assignments are. And I also appreciate you being open to hearing these because there's other people listening who are probably taking notes and wanting to do that in their own life. I think the IFS book, the Internal Family Systems book, again, it's called No Bad Parts, will be helpful for you. I also encourage anybody who does read the book, there are workbooks out there that are helpful, but if you Google Internal Family Systems infographic, because he has this whole, he names these different parts of you. And for me, listening to the audiobook, it got kind of, I was like, well, is the exile the same as a firefighter and a manager? And if you Google the infographic, there are some great images that people have made that explain it. I like to see it. I'm like, can you draw this for me? Like anytime someone's explaining something to me, whether it's a doctor or a marketing person, I'm like, I need you to draw this. I need a picture. Yes. I can't see it. That has been enormously helpful for me to be able to see these other parts of you. And I'm actually going to leave it at that because this is a lot. And which leads me to my next question. How much time do you need for me to check in with you as to how it's going so we can give people an update on the podcast?
A couple weeks.
I was going to say at least.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want maybe 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Would that work? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be great.
And now, my dear, the floor is yours. Is there anything that you want to say or ask in order for you to feel complete before we close up?
You gave me a lot of information, so I can't think of anything else that I can ask. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. It's been great. Both of our meetings have been really nice.
Good.
It's really nice to hear that I'm not alone.
You're not.
I loved what you said about when you went through your decision of making to get a divorce, because I did that. So those were exactly all the feelings that I had, that I was imploding my family, and I redid it over and over and over again until finally 20 years later said, okay, done.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want anybody to wait that long.
Neither do I. But I just think that for some people, it's part of their learning process, and it's, part of their life. I don't know if I want to say destiny, but just like their life journey in terms of learning whatever lessons they need to learn. And I wanted to give that example because it was a gigantic one, but that can happen in even like with shoes, with a pair of shoes. It's like making a decision. So thank you again for being so vulnerable on the show. I will email you in 3 weeks and I'll give an update before this podcast airs. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. I wanted to send you a voice memo with an update on how things have gone since our one-on-one coaching session. I'm working really hard on just making a decision. I know that you said I need to just do it and deal with my tummy telling me no, or wait it out, or let's keep trying, or thinking about it. I will say in the beginning, because it was fresh in my mind, I just went through and made a decision, just stuck with it, period. And then I could see myself faltering. What I do when I'm really struggling with that stinking decision is just remind myself, Andrea said, sit in the messy middle. Andrea said, just make the decision. So I've been trying really hard to just go back to those words, make the decision. You can change it. You can return it. You can do something different in most situations. So just go for it. The more self-help information I find, the more I go back and go, oh my gosh, life could have been so much different had I just learned this sooner. I'm learning it now, and that's what counts, right? So again, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's coaching episode and the update that Maggie so generously gave us. And again, if you want to be coached on the podcast, that is something that I only open up applications about once a year, and we are full for the year. But if you would like a single session with me that might be similar to the one that you just listened to, or something completely different, head on over to AndreaOwen.com/single, and you can purchase a single session there and get scheduled to be on my calendar so we can tackle whatever you're feeling stuck on. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number Everything Smart Bed sale. Every smart bed and base are on sale during our Memorial Day event. Up to 50% off, plus free home delivery. Limited time. Exclusively to Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.